Welcome to the Play Ed 3 podcast, where you're the reoccurring guest, whether you're in the classroom or shaping education behind the scenes. I'm Tisha Poncio.
And I'm Rick Butterworth. Together, we bring stories, insights, and conversations that matter to educators, learners, and change makers. Our goal is to bring everyone together to learn, grow, and play. Welcome to the Play Ed 3 podcast. My name is Rick, and as always, I'm here with my co-host, Tisha. Tish, last week I mentioned about it was September, school started, autumn's on its way, fall, as you say. But one thing that I also love about September is it's a great month. And I never realized this. I've never realized September is such a great month because it's also the start of some of the major sports teams. So obviously football or soccer, as you say, the new season starts. But also for me, and this will probably give a hint of when this podcast was recorded, was my favorite ice hockey team in America are playing their preseason right now. So, I mean, we're doing a recording and I'm not watching the ice hockey. That's dedication from my side.
That's big dedication, absolutely.
But I think the biggest question I've got is, what's your favorite sports, Tish? Because I know you've got numerous sports teams that you like. But what's your favorite sport that you like?
So when you ask me that question, I think of it in a couple of ways. I think of it like, what is my favorite sport to play, for example? Also, what is my favorite sport to watch on TV, or what is my favorite sport to watch in person? So those answers are a little bit different across the board. If anybody says, I will take you to this sports game, like fill in the blank, I'm going to say yes. I love to go to any sport game in person. I love it. I was born to do that. I probably should have found a job where I can just be in that sports environment because I love watching baseball, football, your version, American football, ice hockey, everything. I love watching that. Even a lot of people don't know that I was a cross country mom. And so my youngest daughter, Avery, she ran cross country. And let me just tell you, if you don't know about the cross country runners in the world, the parents and the supporters and spectators, it is like a sport for them too. Because what I would do is I would plot out the different points that I could run to and cheer her on, and then I would plot the next point. So I would have my map of the track from the spectator perspective, and I would be plotting where I could go to cheer her on next, while she was really just looking at the course and making notes of how she was going to run this race, right? I was a cheerleader, and I was a cheerleader for football for 7 years. So I know American football. I watched it from the time I was 2 and 3, and then I was cheering for it. So I love watching American football, but that is the only sport I would say, you know what, I really don't want to go to that game. I've never been to a Cowboys game ever. I've never been to a professional football game because I would rather watch it on TV because I'm getting the commentary and there's just too many people around me to really enjoy it, right? Baseball, I love going to baseball games. Very chill. I love the food. But on TV, I really like watching football. And did you know I played softball? Did you know that? I was a softball player, and I played, I think I started when I was 7, all the way up until I started cheerleading. And then in college, I was on a co-ed softball team. So I could hit home runs, Rick, just so you know. And what I love about co-ed softball is typically the men of the teams, when they were in the outfield and a female was up to bat, they would walk forward because their walking forward was indicating that they did not believe that the female was going to hit a ball over their head.
Yeah.
And I sure enough would. So I loved doing that. It was my favorite thing.
They were always like, "Oh, Tisha's on spread out."
No, they would move forward, and I just used that their movement of moving forward as my motivation. Because I was like, okay, well, you're going to move forward. Just watch what I do.
Love it.
And we know your favorite sport is hockey.
Yeah, ice hockey, obviously, because that's what I brought up. So, but that's what I love about sports in general, because I'm a New York Rangers fan. in America.
Yes. Yes.
And I've got my local ice hockey team, which you've also seen, Tish, the Manchester Storm, took you to a game.
That was fun.
And I just love how sports bring so many people together worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter what sport it is,
Yeah.
there's always that community globally.
Yeah.
And it's the same with education, because we've got a global community of educators. It doesn't matter if there's different rules in different countries, all that, we're all going for the same goal. And that's what I love about, this episode as well. It just shows how we're now becoming more and more global. We've had someone from the UK. We've had, obviously, mostly America. And Tish, do you want to introduce our latest guest?
I do. I love how you set that up, because this person is the epitome of bringing global communities together. And you're right. The Play at 3 podcast is global. So if you have somebody in the globe internationally that you want us to interview and know more about, please email us at pe3info@gmail.com. Today's guest, and I am going to practice her name, and everybody's going to laugh, because you all know names are so important, and it does take me a little bit of time to practice, and I want so much to be Italian, and I think as I say this name, I get caught up in the fact that I just want to be Italian, and then I totally mess it up. So my friend, my fellow community member, Claudia Fisanotti.
Well done. Well done. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to the Play at 3 podcast. Officially,
thank you, guys.
This is your first podcast ever, Claudia.
My first podcast ever. I'm so
Amazing.
excited.
That is unbelievable to me, because you have so much passion, and you share so much with the communities that are around you there in Italy, but also globally. I knew you through global communities in the edtech space on Twitter, now X. And then we met for the first time at BET just earlier this year. You do so many things. I have a list of your bio here. She is Regional Digital Curriculum Integrator. Now, if that isn't a mouthful, and I'm already thinking that's a lot of things to do, right? But in addition to what you do for your day job, you're also a Google educator leader in Italian, right, for all of Italy. She is coordinating digital curriculum. She is working and piloting Google Workspace for Education Plus with generative AI, and she delivers workshops and webinars. She is an ambassador for tools like Book Widgets, Canva, Edpuzzle, Book Creator, ThingLink, Lumio, Cami. It goes on, but she's showing how these tools really help her mission, which is to inspire educators to harness digital creativity for 21st century skills to really empower those students to be lifelong learners. Welcome to the Play at 3 podcast, Claudia.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you.
So, let's talk a little bit about your philosophy. Your philosophy highlights technology as the bridge, not the destination. So what I would love to know is, how do you help teachers see past the tool itself and focus on the empowerment it creates for students? How do you shift people's mindsets from just thinking about the tool to the bigger goal?
You know, Tish, in my work, I have to deal with K-12 teachers that are my students. So, well, I'm a teacher of English, so sorry for my mistakes sometimes when I'm a little bit excited.
We love
I make
that
mistakes,
you are.
so
We love
please forgive me. But, what happened is that, we as teacher always say, oh, these students are talking too much. And, I always have to make them understand that I'm talking, that we are on a lesson, and teachers are much worse than that. Because when they are in professional development sessions, they chit chat, they are on the phone, you say, excuse me, I'm not talking to you. Okay, no, I just wanted to know, if everything was okay, if I can help you in any way. No, not now. Okay, I'm busy. All right, okay, And then the thing is that sometimes I find that a lot of teachers are resistant to
Mm.
new changes, because they say, I'm going to retire in 5 years. What's the point of me, learning this? You're fun. I like you. But, can you teach me something easy that I can do now so I don't get bored? And you're like, no, 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 I'm not going to teach you anything that, you have to be bored with me. We're on this together, And sometimes it's just fun because, well, the weirdest things that happened to me, I can say because she doesn't know English, so I can say that. So it was a teacher that she was hungry. And she brought something that in Italy is quite popular. So it's like carameled almonds that are kind of hard. And it's like a big cake that you have to, to cut, but
Sure.
with your hands because it's very, very hard. And I was, sorry, I'm laughing because I know what's going to happen. So I was teaching and I was giving the back because I was drawing something on the whiteboard. And all of a sudden I heard bang, bang. And I went, what's going on? And she said, I'm hungry. And then she took a piece and she ate it and said, anyone? And we were like, shocked because we didn't expect, none of us expect. We were 30 people looking at her and she was cheerfully happy, eating and having fun and say, yeah, carry on, go on, like, okay. So these are the kinds of, things that I experience when I teach teachers, which is fun in a way. And plus I see what I like the most is when I see the sparkle in their eyes because they got what I want them to, to understand and, to deliver to their students. Other times I don't see any spark. It's fine anyway. Technology is not for everyone. There are
that's
people.
Interesting. Talk to me about that because that sounds like some of the opposite things that we hear from a lot of people as far as everybody should know the technology and technology is the future and technology is going to be, what runs the world. And Rick and I had a discussion recently about glasses and technology. And, and so I think it's interesting. Technology is not for everyone. Tell us more about that.
That some teachers just they don't feel comfortable using computers or anything that is tech related. They just feel that they are charismatic. They say, I've got charisma, so I don't need any of that. There is me, and then there's the book. And it's perfect. I can use the book and myself and my tone of voice, and then I go crazy if some students go crazy, and that's it. And I'm done. And, in my old school where I used to teach middle schoolers, my students always had their computer and their interactivity with me, and we had so much fun. But next to me, there was a typical Italian teachers that didn't really care about anything because, charismatic. So she had herself a PowerPoint presentation that she created 20 years prior because, anyway, what's changing? Nothing. And then she could, carry on with, I saw her yesterday, by the by, but she doesn't, we were at the supermarket. She said, hi, hello, how are you? I'm good. Yes, I know you are. Yeah. But, nothing can change their mindset if they don't want to use technology. Even though, this year in Italy, we spend a lot of money on professional development linked to technology and linked to hardware and software use. But sometimes you find teachers that are really keen on doing what they're doing, but other times you find teachers that they get bored. They don't believe in the system. They say that students are not worth their time. And, that it is what it is. I have to be honest. So
absolutely. Well, we want any of our guests on the Play at 3 podcast to be honest, because what we want to do is give you the platform to kind of share the reality of what's happening out there and the mindsets. I think it is so interesting. I'm laughing a little bit. I have two questions. One is going to be for you and Rick, but the question I have specifically for you.
Am I a guest this again?
You're a guest.
I'm a guest with you, Claudia.
Again, Rick. I thought it was so hilarious when you were explaining you are teaching teachers. That's what I did for 13 years. I was a digital learning coach, instructional technology coach. And I found very quickly when I worked with elementary teachers and I was doing lunch and learns with them, for example,
All
and
right,
having them
all right.
come in and do learning with me, their behaviors were so mirrored to elementary student behaviors. So they would come in and they would sit down and they would have their paper and their favorite pen and
Oh,
they would
yes.
like be ready and they would ask me questions and they would raise their hand. It was like so crazy. And then I would go teach the middle school teachers. The middle school teachers would mimic and mirror their student behavior. And it was the exact same for the high school teachers. And I, of course, being a high school teacher, I know exactly, like the high school teachers would come in and you know this, it's how we all are. It's like, well, do I have to be here? Like I have other things I need to
Exactly.
go do, right?
Thank you. Thank you.
And you have to just think of it like teenagers are wanting to understand the why. Why am I here? What is the point of me being here? Excuse me. And I just find it so interesting that I've said this before, but we essentially become what we're surrounded by. And so that always sort of proved the theory. And it is tough to get out of that mindset. My question for both you and Rick, and this is really just me coming from an American perspective, wanting to know internationally, because I've learned this over the course of time, working at Wakelet and Smart/Lumio. That many teachers still today are leaning on just utilizing a slide deck and themselves, as you said, which tells me that many teachers are out there still being the sage on the stage. And if you aren't familiar with that term, if you're listening and you aren't familiar with the term sage on the stage, basically what that tells you is that the teacher is the lecturer. The teacher is talking all the time. And the students are sitting in desks taking in the information. So the expectation is that they're to listen, they're to look at the slide deck. And as Rick has said many times, some teachers are expecting them to also write. So you have the students really trying to juggle 3 different expectations from the teacher while the teacher is the sage on the stage, then expecting the teachers to have the students to have taken in all that info. My question is, do you feel that mindset of sage on the stage and PowerPoints is more prominent internationally, globally, or just in the US? What do you think?
Claudia,
Rick,
you can go
please.
first.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to go first. Okay.
You go first. Go
Okay,
on.
thank you so much. You're very kind. Well, in Italy, this is the exact picture. On the one hand, we have the teacher that likes professional development sessions, that wants to achieve her potential, that wants to go out there and discover everything that can, change her teaching techniques for the best. And on the other hand, there are teachers laughing at exactly the other group, saying, you don't need all that because you got the book, and students don't deserve anything but this. And let me tell you, this group is kind of big. Even though we tried to change perspective and to make up people's mind, they're still there because they're old enough to know that they can't be bothered to change their teaching techniques, because what's the point? They're not controlled because our Ministry of Education doesn't inspect what they do at school. Once you become in-service teachers, you're done. Nobody will ever come to see what you're doing in class. Wow. Even though there's something wrong, something that it's not good, nobody will ever come and take this job away from you. Nobody. So you see, what's the point?
Okay, I'm coming back to that. Rick, what do you have to say? I feel like you have a lot to say here.
I mean, obviously the difference from my side is I'm not in the actual classroom itself. However, I will say that there is a mix of both, because I see there's a lot of people in education in the UK who are trying to advocate for particular tools and trying to evolve the classroom from just being that teacher at the front and the students listen. saying that, I would definitely say that in the likes of secondary school, when you've got particular exams that have to be done, the teachers have to keep to a particular curriculum, they're not given the flexibility the same to be able to do all these extra bits, because the focus is you need to do your GCSEs or your A-levels, which are major exams for years 11 or grade 11 and grade 13 in the UK. So there is really a restriction for educators, but I would also agree with Claudia that there are educators who just want to stick to the curriculum, just want to, you've got a textbook, we've got a whiteboard, do that. That's all we're doing. And it does hinder the students, because Tish, you know from my background at school that I've had numerous teachers that would just write from the actual book itself onto the whiteboard and expect the students to copy it. And being dyslexic, I didn't consume anything from that.
So I think that's my question to both of you, and really just having a conversation here. It's mind-blowing to me to think about that you have leaders who they've taken on these jobs, whether they are leaders like in Texas, they're taking jobs at the state level. They're the ones creating the rules from the government that trickle down to, the teacher's classroom. It's mind-blowing to me to think that people I'm really honestly, and just being fully transparent, this is not anything I've ever talked about with anybody. I'm really struggling currently right now to understand why people are in these roles genuinely with this. I really don't care what the outcome is. And it really concerns me on a global level that we are not more concerned about helping our teachers be better at teaching and coaching them that, and showing them that it does not have to be more work to have an incredible outcome for students. But what you do have to have is an open mind and heart to be able to learn that, right? To execute it and go, you know what? It does not going to take me a lot of extra work to get a really fantastic outcome. And then also really nurturing this culture of feedback and reflection, which Rick and I talk about all the time. We talk about it in our book. It is something that I continually note. And really, based on what you said, Claudia, they're becoming teachers, and nobody's really going in and like nurturing that craft, because teaching is an art. I say that often. There is an art to teaching and having students not just see their own outcome, but feel successful. And it's an art to create that environment. And I think teachers are artists. I think I've said it multiple times on this podcast. I'm having trouble as a person, genuinely, not even just a teacher, not just a parent, but just as a person going, how can we just not care? I don't understand that level, because we want leaders in the world. We want to create leaders. We want to curate leaders and entrepreneurs in the world to make the world better. Do we not? I mean, I think that's a question not for you and Rick, Claudia. It's a question really for everyone. Do we not want to do that? I think maybe I missed the memo if we don't.
No, they do. They do. It's just that they don't know how to. So what they're going to do, they're going to they say, well, they're going to have my PowerPoint. And then they're going to parrot the PowerPoint that I created like 25 years ago, where I was, young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
that I wanted to work.
Yeah. Don't you think? Okay. So this kind of hits on something in America, and maybe specific to Texas, but I think it's just an American idea, maybe generational. Let me rephrase that.
Okay.
Where older generations, maybe our age, but for sure older generations, and I've heard it live, say, well, this way was good enough for me, so it should be good enough for our students. And I just think to myself, so what you're also saying is that the people after me, the people after us, the generations after us, they don't deserve to have that process be better for them. And I just think just because it worked 25 years ago, I mean, listen, I love retro stuff and I go thrifting all the time. There are certain things that are better. Refrigerators, they operate much better and longer, right? There are things that are better from a long time ago, but I wouldn't say that my PowerPoint, I would be mortified, Claudia, if you said, Tisha, pull up that PowerPoint from 25 years ago. I want you to teach it right now. I'm going to
Yeah.
record you while you teach that. I would be like, please,
No.
dear Lord, do not
Yeah,
make me do
no.
that. I
No,
cannot
no,
do
no.
that. It would be mortifying to me because I'm not proud of that for the current time of our
Of course,
students, right?
I'm totally with you on that one. Of course, no, we are not the people that we were 25 years ago.
Mm,
Our, teaching standards and teaching expertise has, thanks God, changed, and we
mm-hmm,
learn from our mistakes and everything.
mm-hmm,
I would never ever think to use old materials for my students now, and even for teachers. Every time that I create something for them for a professional development session, every time is different. Of course the core stays the same, because maybe I have to teach about a specific tool or a specific teaching technique, but then I have to understand which teacher do I have in front of me, and then I have to accommodate my
mm-hmm,
technique according to them. It's
mm-hmm.
not one size fits all.
No,
Yeah.
Never, ever, ever. No, 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 no.
right.
Plus, we have to think about multimodality, because
Mm,
we don't learn the same way. I
right.
learn in a way, you guys learn in another. So, I had a problem when I was in the UK doing my master,
Mm.
because I wasn't able to study properly. They gave me tons of materials and I wasn't able, because I thought that I had to memorize them. Because I thought that this was studying, memorizing, parroting, rote learning. I said, yeah, that's what I have to do. So I went to my teacher, and the one that I love the most, and I said, please help me, because I don't know, maybe I'm going to drop out because I'm not that good. And she said, what are you talking about?
Mm,
You are good. You just have to find your way. And she helped me understand the way I had to teach and to learn
Mm.
at the same time.
mm.
And from that moment on, everything changed in my life. Every single perspective that I have of teaching and learning changed dramatically. So I had to find that one person.
Mhm.
And don't you think, I mean, that makes me a little bit sad, Claudia. Like, yes,
Don't be
yay,
sad.
that we found the one person, right? I'm sure Rick
Yeah.
can say that too, but it does especially make me sad thinking about, wow, it took us a really long time to find the one person that noticed that and then was able
Yeah.
to guide us through that. And
Yes.
I had a similar experience. I struggled so much in college, just getting my bachelor's degree. And I've told the story multiple times. I was struggling. It was very evident that I was struggling in certain classes in certain years and grades, especially during my bachelor's degree. And not a single person, teacher, professor, like anybody, was noticing my struggle and tying it to the fact that I had ADHD. And it was that processing, as you said, throwing all the information at me and then expecting me to take it all in and sort it out and then be
Yeah.
able to display what I've learned. That was a hard process for me, and I had to accommodate for myself. I mean, there were some really, really like huge moments. Rick and I talk about that often, where we felt disempowered, if you will,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
Oh, yes.
Well, Rick, do you have any questions maybe over things that Claudia is an expert at, process, product?
I love
I
how
don't know.
I love how you're just like putting
Because
feelers out of
I'm
like
putting feelers
maybe
out
this
because
this
I could
question
ask
or
I
this
could ask
question.
questions.
It's just
I got
you
all
know
kinds of questions in my head for
you know
Claudia. I just want you
I
to
know
have
you
an
do.
I
I
opportunity.
love
know
you
you do.
guys. I love you.
You always do it, and it's why I'm sat back and kind of just listening to so much of this. And I think one question I've got, Claudia, because I'm curious about the education system within Italy.
Mm.
Um, is the education system similar to the UK where it's centralized? So you've got your government body that basically decide what the educational curriculum is going to be, or do you
Yes.
have so you've got that kind of system similar to the
Yes, we do.
UK, because I think that's, in a way, is a downfall for education in those kind of countries compared to the US, because US is very decentralized, where you have your government body with the Common Core. They say, oh, this is what you should be teaching, but it's a recommendation. It's not a mandatory requirement, and it's the state that actually decides what you do and what you don't do. So there's a bit of flexibility in what people are doing in different areas, and I think it opens a lot more variation in what's being taught and how it's being taught. Whereas in the UK, especially, I think because the system hasn't really changed much, we don't get the variation the same. And I think when we have the people like yourself, Claudia, that actually comes in and is actually trying to push a way of teaching that is able to enhance the learning experience for not just for students, but even for teachers, is really important. And I think one of the biggest things is where do you see that point of these people are getting what I'm trying to explain?
Well, some teachers are like me. They don't think, okay, I have the curriculum and I have to follow curriculum step by step, otherwise I go crazy and my students won't be prepared, etc., etc. But others, they're following the syllabus and the curriculum to the core. So they don't really find any space to better their teaching, because they say, well, I have been teaching like this since like 1990s, for example. Why should I change my techniques because somebody told me that I have to, add this and add that? I'm going to add it my own way. But then that's about it. And I want to have time because, I've got kids, I've got a family, and I need my spare time. And you're like, yeah, everyone has that. You're not the only one. But what if I care about my students, like for real, and I want them to achieve their potential? I want them to become the leader of their own education. They say, but I'm sorry, I have to go because my daughter is waiting for me. And you're like, okay, just go.
Yeah.
I'm just giving you practical examples because I don't want to be, too, how do you say, talking about pedagogy in this wider way. I just want to tell you what happens with teachers.
Yeah.
There are teachers that are really willing to spend some time with me to learn and, to better their understanding in competencies and how to deal with difficult students, and stuff like that, or ADHD, because they don't know how to deal with them. So I'm helping them with, my tips and tricks. Others, they say, there is a special needs teacher. They're going to take care of that. I don't need that because, when we are in class, they're going to go out. So what's the point of me teaching that or, even learning anything that can help this person be, happy?
So don't you think that is an attitude about learning then? It's maybe a mindset about learning. It sounds like I feel like do people, like, I'm asking you this knowing full well who I'm talking to, because I know it's difficult for all of us to go, well, how can someone get to a certain point in life and go, oh, we don't want to learn anymore? Because we aren't like that. And probably the people listening to this podcast are not like that because they're wanting to learn.
I'm creating a stir.
Right? Like, no, it's good because I think you're creating questions. And I think if we don't have questions and we aren't able to question what we're doing, how we're doing it, where we are, I'm just trying to understand, is there the majority of people out there, are they thinking, is it even our kids? Is it our kids in school? Maybe they're sophomores or juniors or seniors and they're like, I'm going to get to a certain point and I'm just going to stop learning. And it's mind blowing to me to think that there are people, it makes me sad actually to think that there are people who are like, I'm just going to stop learning, because even as a parent, as a friend, as a partner, as a podcaster, as a leader, or even just if I'm working at Walmart, for example, there is something I have to learn. I'm having to constantly learn how to better be a parent, how to constantly learn how to better be a friend, how to constantly learn how to look at what I'm doing and see, is this serving me or is it not helping me in any way?
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
it's not, how can I replace it with something that will? And I just, it's kind of mind blowing, Claudia, because it makes me sad a little bit. It also makes me just really celebrate you for being a leader in this, because we need more Claudias in the world. But let's go back to your parent example. I need to go because I have a family. Okay, well, like, let's hope that as a parent, you're going home and you're like, okay, I should maybe make a healthier dinner other than frozen pizza.
This is a mystery.
Right?
You know,
Yes.
they're outside of class, they're all
I'm like,
perfection. And
right?
their children are amazing and beautiful and handsome and everything.
Right.
You know?
And it is because I start thinking about how I was as a teacher. Definitely flowed over into how I was as a parent, and that flowed over into how I was as a friend. And I mean, I felt like it all kind of reminds me of a watercolor that I've done where the colors accidentally kind of spilled over into the other, right? And so I don't know, it's just so interesting. I've always been fascinated by this idea because I'm just naturally joyful, even if the world around me is falling apart. I'm naturally a learner. And I naturally want to be better. And I think it's hard for me to, I would love for someone to come on who has this idea, Claudia. So if you have somebody, would love to just hear from them, right?
You know, I think, you know, what happens, in my opinion, is this. In Italy, nobody will ever teach you how to be a teacher, which is strange because you say, how is nobody? No, because what happened is that when you're at school, you've got these examples of cathedratic teachers learning, you know, they want to learn the lesson, you parrot the lesson and you've got the top notch marks and that's it, and you're amazing. Competencies, what? No, we don't need that. Then when you grow up, you decide to become a teacher, and nobody has ever told you how to be a teacher. So you basically study, you've got some books, you study, you pass an exam, and you're done. And you don't have any specific training. That's it.
Look at Rick. Rick's face says everything.
I know.
The issue I've got with this is the fact that people who are in the classroom teaching are managers. When you look at it from a standard workforce, they are managers. They're having to lead a group of individuals on a particular task or responsibility or whatever that might be. Now, if you go into any organization that is not education, you start at the bottom, you work your way up. You get to management level by learning from the person who was the manager before. You're given training of how to be a manager. You also have support from the likes of HR or your manager above you who should be helping you to be a better manager. But yet teachers go straight from whatever it is they're doing straight into essentially a managerial role.
Yes.
But nobody with no training, but no one outside of that actually realizes that is essentially what you're doing. So it's more important than anything that you actually have the necessary training to understand all the different types of people that you're going to have. How's the best way to teach them? And honestly, I think it's easier in an organization to actually become a manager and manage people than it is to be a teacher, because you've got potentially, I don't know how many students you have in your classroom, Claudia.
Roughly 25, 27.
Okay, so very close to the same as the US and the UK. I mean, the managers that I know, they're usually high up when they have that volume of individuals to coordinate. And a teacher's getting it from pretty much day one. And they're having to deal with so many different personalities. Personalities are also developing.
Yeah, their attitudes have essentially been set up by the people who put them in that place, right?
Honestly, this gives me a headache.
Okay, well, let's change. Let's stop the headaches, and I'm going to give Claudia another question.
Yeah.
My question, Claudia, I know that you believe that the process is more important. The process of learning is more important
Yes.
than the end product. So I want to know, what strategies have you found most effective to shift that mindset again, to value the journey over the outcome? And this is not just really specific to Italian education, right?
No, no, not
It's
at
the
all.
same
Not
thing
at
in
all.
America. It's like, oh, well, I got 100 all through school, and now I'm in college and I'm failing.
Yeah.
How do you shift the importance of process over product?
When you understand that at the end of the day, when you get like 100%, that doesn't really mean that you got your competencies top notch and everything. It just meant that you studied everything by heart and you repeated like a parrot. It is what it is. So, you know what, with my students, I saw that they were kind of uncomfortable with some items that I was teaching them because they were difficult. So what I
Mm,
did was I just started teaching differently. I bite-sized my teaching
yes.
and I
Mhm.
follow them each and every step of the way. And well, I was in middle school back then. So at the end of the third year, we got an exam. So it's kind of year 11, like here, Rick said. So my
Don't worry.
English is waving goodbye.
I mean,
And
honestly, Claudia, imagine if you invited me to an Italian podcast, how much I would struggle. You're doing fantastic.
thank you. You're so kind, but yeah. So I just sometimes I'm like, okay. But then what happened was that my head teachers came over to assist to the exam. We got the exam and the oral part, and he went, Claudia, I really don't understand why your students know English. And I said, oh, you're you're looking at her, and he went, no. And I said, yeah. It's just because I've got the different methodology, and so it's a win-win situation because of course I work more, but I achieved in making them motivated and happy
Mhm.
to learn another language. And believe me, in Italy, learning English is not really the favorite
Mm.
subject. So, yeah.
It's so interesting. You said, I followed them.
Yeah.
You said that when you switched up your teaching, you followed them. And that in itself, right there, tells your entire story, your educational philosophy. It wasn't that you expected them to follow you. And that right there, I followed them, is a
Mm.
leadership strategy that Rick and I talk
Mhm.
about. It tells that you are not the single voice in the room taking up all the space, as we said before. That is
No.
an incredible quote, Claudia. I followed
Thank you.
them. I love it. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. You're making me
Honestly.
blush.
Rick,
Yeah.
did you recover from the other topic that we
Yeah,
were
my
on?
headache's eased down a little bit now. My headache's eased down a little bit. No, I think one of the biggest things, Claudia, you're full of energy, and I love everything that you've been talking about and what you're bringing to education. So obviously we've said that there are people that aren't interested, there are people that are interested. Let's look at the people that are interested. But we are in a space that's very overwhelming. Let's say we've got an educator who is old school, wants to try and mix it up for the first time, has no idea what to do, where to start. What would you recommend to them to help them move from a traditional classroom of stood at the front with a whiteboard reading from a book to essentially giving ownership to the students, giving them some autonomy and being able to feel engaged in the classroom?
First of all, I will think about what are the goals that the person would like to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure that in 2 hours PDs, you're not gonna become, the amazing ed tech specialist. However, if you move, little steps towards competence, then I'm happy. For example, when I teach them, I always try to get to know where they're going. And then I said, okay, so you want to present something like a brochure or, I don't know, a leaflet or a presentation, but you want to use this tool instead of the other tool. Okay, I'm going to show you how it's done. How do you feel? Do you feel comfortable in using this? Do you want me to go through with you with all the process? And believe me, even the more experienced teachers want to go, start from step one in order for them to revise and feel more motivated and strong enough, to carry out with their own strengths and motivation. That's what I do, really. And then, of course, I'm trying to be very, very, very patient. Very patient.
Yep.
That is not one of my strengths, but I'm really working very hard on that one, because otherwise, sometimes it's hard.
It can be, yes. It can be, yeah. I completely agree with you on that one, because that's patience is something that I think we all
need to nurture.
Struggle with, but is so powerful. I mean, I lose patience with Tish all the time.
All the time. Same.
No.
With it just within minutes and everything. But no, you're completely right there, because it's we have to be patient even with the students, because some are going to learn it at certain speeds, some are going to be faster than others, and when you're having to manage so many students, and especially when you're under time constraints as well. You've got to kind of keep within that time frame, but also get everybody across the line in a sense.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can't rush anything. But I think the things that you're advocating for, they at least elevate students that may be underperforming, being able to bring in not just a tool but a process, as you say, that is going to help them to keep up with the rest of the students and potentially even make them perform even better than any other student, and actually make them top of the class or anything like that. That really illustrates.
Really. Yeah, exactly. And then they feel that you see them. They're not a number. They're a person. And they say, but Teacher Fisa loves me. She cares about me. Well, that's what they say. Well, like, what was that? Like a week ago, I met a girl that is super dyslexic, and now she's a special needs teacher. And
Amazing.
She said, "Oh, I didn't know that you were doing professional development sessions in my school. So I'm so proud. So I used to be your students, and I'm going to be at your students, and I'm very proud of that, because I will learn, another type of thing with you, and I'm so thankful." And I was like listening to my colleague that was looking at me like. Yeah. I said, listen to what she's saying. Listen, record this. So we will remember that. And he said, yeah, whatever. I said, but it's true. And she went, yeah, it's true. She changed my life. And I was eating a salad, and I was like, wow.
I was eating a salad.
Thank you. No, I mean, I was in the middle of my meal. And I said, well, thank you so much. I wasn't expecting that, 1 p.m. in the afternoon. But yeah, well, so it's a nice feedback that I received in the middle of a coffee shop. Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's amazing. I don't know. What a story, Rick.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
It is.
Rick, I know what Rick loves doing these podcasts, because it's sort of like Rick is healing his dyslexic childhood classroom wounds of struggles, sitting with teachers who are making a difference, right, with students who are struggling. I think this is so awesome. I have one more question, and then hopefully Rick will let me do Juicebox Confessionals. Because it's my favorite
only if you
part.
could.
Okay, so Claudia, we know that you're an educational entrepreneur. We know that you're doing so many things. You're a community member of all sorts of different digital learning tools. You have scaled projects across regions and communities. I would love to know what advice you have for educators who are listening, who might want to take an an innovative classroom practice and grow it into something bigger, something sort of like, I started doing my classroom practice was flipping the script and having my students lead the classroom. And I was taking more of a facilitator role, not just saying it, but truly doing it. That led me to the book. That led me here to the podcast. So what advice do you have for educators as you've been doing the same thing in your own life and your own professional goals? What is your advice for other teachers who have the passion like you do?
Yeah, first of all, never give up because it's not easy. And you will find a lot of bumps in the way. But never give up. Be brave, be strong, go out there. Don't be afraid of change. Change sometimes can be scary, very scary, and very upsetting as well. And you feel like rubbish because said, oh my God, look of all the work that I'm doing and I'm not going anywhere. But eventually you're going to be in a podcast talking with two amazing people.
Little by little, right? Little by little. It is.
Exactly.
I mean, you and I met each other. Oh, what year was it, Claudia? Was it
2 years ago where I just finished my first
2023?
batch. Yes, and then I was super sick, and I had this book creator storytelling webinar, and David Hotler kindly invited me, there to talk about storytelling, and I was super sick, but I said, I'm not gonna miss that, never, ever, ever, and I did it, and I was so proud of myself.
You did amazing. I do remember that. I mean, think about it. Think about just reflecting on the 2 years ago where you were and where you are today. You've done so many things. I think you are an incredible cheerleader for teachers, for coaches who are coaching teachers, and for students. I love your energy. I love your passion. And I want to say to you, don't stop also, because never in a million years, if I went back 10 years from today, would I have expected to be on this podcast, right, with the two of you, being able to talk internationally to educators. It just is amazing what happens when you keep learning and keep trying, right? So
never
that's
stop learning.
Great advice. Great advice. Okay.
Love it.
So, Rick, is it time?
I would say it's time for Juicebox Confessionals.
Dun, dun, dun.
So Juicebox Confessionals is not something that our guest ever knows what I'm going to ask. It's always different every time. I try to come up with questions that are related to retro ideas. And this is going to be really fun because, Claudia, you are coming from Italy. And Rick is in the UK. And what I find is a lot of times these Juicebox Confessionals seem to be very U.S. culture focused. And Rick is like, I don't know what you people are talking about.
I'm so happy. Even if I don't know what you're talking about, Claudia, if it's Italy specific, it's just nice to not be the only one that will not know what it is. So I'm looking forward to it.
Says the person who wants to move to America.
Oh my God.
I mean, I want to move there so that I can understand all the things that you're talking about. That's the only reason.
Of course.
Okay. So I would love to know, Claudia, as a kid, what was the most iconic snack when you were growing up? What snack was your go-to snack when you were coming home from school? Either you were making it or your mom was having it ready. It was like on the counter. Tell us about your favorite snack.
Oh, Tish, I was always on a diet.
Claudia's Gen X. Let's just say that we had a discussion about Gen X. It's funny how the Gen X diet culture has changed all the way to today, right? But what was your favorite?
All right, my favorite. So my story is a little bit peculiar because I started visiting the UK since the tender age of 9 years old. And my mom used to buy me, a Mars bar.
Oh, yeah.
But in the UK, it wasn't small. It was X large. You mom. And I was eating all of love that. And my mom was scared. She said, I'm going to go to the hospital. I said, don't worry, I'm good. And I was good for real. And I loved march because in Italy, I wasn't allowed to because I was on a diet. But in the UK, she couldn't kind of control me because I was with my, with my teeny tiny group of adolescents. And so I was going out and buying my own Mars bar. Okay.
Well, I can't fault you for that. The chocolate in the UK is my favorite. And I guess this might be a perfect time to tell Rick that I might be out of my dairy milk. So it might be time for another stash.
Okay, I'll make a note.
Okay, so that's
for when I'm next in Texas. I've got it there.
Okay, so let's see. Okay, we're gonna move into a little pop culture. Did you have MTV in Italy growing up? Did you have access to that?
We did, but in the 90s. And I loved, the pop videos where they were like video. Yeah.
The VHS pop, the VH1 pop video. Yes. Okay. So here's what I want to know. Which music video is burned into your memory forever?
Oh my God. Well, I was a huge fan of Madonna.
Ooh, yes.
So everything Madonna related for me, it was a big hit. I was crying. I just wanted to meet her. Yeah. She was my hero, and, the person I was looking forward to listen to and to learn from. And, but then Papa Don't Preach.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. That's the one. And because, she has the t-shirt, Italians Do It Better.
I remember that. Yes.
So of course, that was my favorite one. Of course.
That's so good.
Yeah, I will feel so ashamed when I listen back to everything that I said.
This is so fun because as I was asking you that question, I was trying to think of what my answer would be. But before I give you my answer, Rick, do you have a music video that's burned into your memory from childhood?
That's a good question because when I was a kid, we didn't have MTV in the sense that I could watch music videos consistently because the UK, obviously we had what we call Sky, it was basically satellite or cable, but if you didn't have either of them, you had 5 channels to watch and that was it. And I went through a long period of my childhood with that, and then I didn't really grow up on music videos because I was already listening to the music through CDs or anything like that. So I didn't really watch them as much.
I do miss the VH1 MTV era where they were just playing videos all the time because they were putting so much money into the production of the videos, right?
Yeah.
My video, no one is going to be surprised by this, but I haven't talked about it in forever. And Claudia reminded me with her Madonna flashback. My video was New Kids on the Block, Please Don't Go Girl, which was highlighting Joey McIntyre. And I remember this whole video. I can see it in my head. Like they're at the carnival. Maybe, I don't know. They were somewhere else. They were probably on the beach in New Jersey. And I just remember like all of the scenes, right? Like you just kind of, it all comes back to you as you start talking about it. And I have not thought about that, but I did meet New Kids on the Block, Claudia. Rick gets tired of me telling the story, but I met them. I was like you.
Me?
No, I was like you. I was like, I want to meet them. One day I'm going to meet them. And that dream actually came true as an adult. I ended up in the elevator with New Kids on the Block.
Excuse me?
Yes. Yes, I was in the elevator with all of them and their bodyguard, and
you were like, oh my God, like that.
And became friends with Danny Wood, just over the course of time. And it's just kind of crazy how it manifested. But I still love New Kids on the Block, and I will never forget dreaming about meeting them while I was watching VH1 or MTV. And then it actually happening. So you are going to have your Madonna spotlight one day. I promise you.
Well, now she's in her 60s, nearly 70s.
Doesn't even matter, Claudia.
Doesn't matter.
Don't give up. Do not give up.
Tina Turner, Rolling Stones, they're all still performing.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
They'll keep going. They all keep going.
So here is my last question. I'm just trying to decide which one I want to pick. Let's see. Okay. There's so many. I asked ChatGPT to help me because I was asking some specific things because I really wanted to tie the UK, US, and Italian cultures together. But I think this might be it. And this, we don't have to know what it is, but I would love to know. Okay, Saturday mornings meant that your parents were either away from the house doing yard work or sleeping in the US, and we were in front of the TV watching cartoons. And like Rick said, we only had 4 channels. So the cartoons were like, you got 4 choices until the next hour or the half hour. So did you have a favorite cartoon growing up?
It's called Mila and Shiro.
Okay.
It was about volleyball. So
really?
Yeah, I love fancy. Yeah, fancy. But then, on Saturdays we were going to, I didn't really have any free time because we were going to school. We still are going to school on Saturdays. Yeah, it's
School
kind of boring.
on Saturdays.
Yeah.
So the
Saturday
only day you had
mornings.
off was Sunday.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah, but then
Do they still do that now?
Of course. We
Wow.
like, let's say that we are in 1925 and things has never changed. They're still the same, 1925. 100 years later, still there, so still going strong. So, yeah.
So literally teachers and students are only getting 1 day off a week, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and hardly
Wow.
ever no afternoons because they're studying or, doing like workshops and stuff like that. Yeah. From
Okay.
Monday to Saturday. Yeah.
This makes sense then for the teachers sometimes who are like, oh, I need to go. Like, I didn't realize the Saturday thing. That's, do you think they'll ever go to a 4-day school?
No.
Hmm.
No, not at all. Not in Italy. Or maybe so. I don't know. But for now, it's not possible because, for example, in Aosta Valley, we need to have 36 hours of tuition per week. Whereas in other Italian region is 30 hours, but because we are bilingual, Italian and French, that is taught equally. So you got 6 hours of Italian and 6 hours of French and 3 hours of English. That is, the sad sister in the corner out there. Yeah, it is what it is. It's true. It's true. So, yeah, so we have 6 hours more than the others. So, you do the math. You don't really have a lot of free time, really.
Wow.
Crazy.
Well, this has been a great conversation, Claudia, and I am so glad. I hope you share this podcast with all of your Italian friends and educators and bring all of your community into the Pleiad 3 educator community, which is what Rick and I really wanted to build with this podcast. Our book, we wanted it to be something that would transcend languages. We would love to get that translated. We would love to get it on an audiobook. It would be amazing.
That would be amazing one day.
Yeah, we would really, really love that. But for now, the podcast is how we can share out those strategies. And of course, you are doing the work. You're the boots on the ground of the things that we have put in our book. And we're just really grateful to have you on our podcast as our guest and to bring all of your friends and family into our community as well. Rick, do you have any last questions for Claudia?
I think the biggest one is, Claudia, if people want to follow you, connect with you, where's the best place to do that?
Well, I would say Tisha.
The link tree. Do you have a link tree, don't you?
I do have a link tree. So we're gonna share my link tree. Is that correct?
Yep.
Good.
It will be in the description.
Yeah.
So
Perfect.
are you on TikTok, Instagram?
I am on Facebook, Instagram with La Prof Fisa. That is the open one because I've got another one that is just for friends and family. And then, of course, Facebook, that is, the platform where I show everything that I do and where I talk to my fellow colleagues from all over Italy.
Amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amazing. Excellent. And yes, all of that information will be down in the description. So, yeah, I think that is the end of the episode. Claudia, thanks for joining us. It's been a great conversation, as Tisha's already mentioned. For those who are listening, if you've made it this far and you've enjoyed the episode, please give it a like, follow, subscribe if you're not already, wherever you're listening to this podcast. And for now, we'll see you next week.
Thank you for being a part of this episode. Continue the conversation with us online. Subscribe and follow, and let us know if you'd like to join as a guest or if there's someone you'd like to hear from.
We'd love to connect with you on X, Instagram, and TikTok. All links and show notes will be available in the episode description. Until next time, keep learning, growing, and playing.